right, Ray, welcome to the WealthTech podcast. I'm excited for this conversation. Can you give a quick introduction of yourself and TOS Advisors?
Sure. Hey, Mark, thanks for having me on. Ray DiNunzio, based in Houston, Texas, and TOS originally started about 12 years ago. It was a de novo single family office that was a family that held a holding company, 9 operating businesses, sold their largest business for about $3.5 billion. And it was a cross-border transaction, lots of complexity, lots of things to track. Over the years, it evolved and the family office came out and became more complicated and more complicated. In 2018, my friends there asked for permission to sort of spin out of the family office. And we kept the name of the organization from that point forward. We just saw an opportunity in the marketplace, Mark. So many people are frustrated with sort of the family office experience, the operation, technology, solving problems. The administrative burden grows way faster than its ability to manage it. And honestly, I got intrigued by this concept of an exponential organization, which is done out of Singularity University with Salam Ismail. And a good friend of mine ran a company in Houston called Arctic. And Arctic is a big, cooler company. People know Yeti really well. Arctic is a very similar company. And Jim and his brother John built this company, evolving it and calling it Fast Followers. And where Yeti had 650 employees, they had 23. And it's really rung into me. They did the same volume, did the same thing. And I started looking at this Singularity University stuff. And I was of the opinion, like, could you apply this concept to a family office? Because I had a traditional career in finance, worked for a large global bank, and ended up on the executive team for their private wealth management division and their family office practice. And everyone struggles in these family offices. And the punchline here is in an exponential organization, you can do things 20 times better or faster. And, should be significantly cheaper than somebody else doing it. And it's embracing technology, leasing, don't owning. It's creating dashboards. And if you look up this concept, it's really fascinating to me. And we just had this idea that maybe there was time for a different way to approach the administrative burden of a family office. And rather than everybody inside the office trying to do it, could you outsource that? And could you outsource it with all the best technologies being operated on your behalf? So we started that off. We were early in this idea of outsourcing this, and people didn't really understand what we were talking about in 2019. People very much understand it today, and we're really fortunate to be having the success that we are.
Well, your timing must have been great with the virtual family office, and then with the advent of COVID and firms having to embrace that anyways. Tell me a little bit about your tech stack and how you've developed your tech stack, and what can family offices learn from that particular process?
I mean, the dilemma that we all face, and my friends certainly did too, is I think fundamentally technology is sold, it's not purchased. And we tend to buy technology off demonstrations, calling up people that we know. Hey, Mark, what do you use? Why do you use it? That's sort of the general way that people go about this. And my friends in the family office, my partners, in an 8-year period, they were rewiring the family office for the third time. And they spent good money. They hired consultants. They hired professionals. I think the divide between the consultant business and the client experience is that oftentimes the consultants don't operate the technology and never operated it. And so they don't really know what the outcome is. And the salespeople can sell you, here's this experience, Mark, in a perfect world, but your world's not perfect in your family office, right? And so it doesn't necessarily line up as well as it could. What we did at the time when they were facing this dilemma, and we instituted it for the family offices they were working in, was I had this time at this big bank, and we spent a lot of time with a major consulting firm, Boston Consulting Group, when I was at the firm, at the bank. And so I went to them first and I said, you guys, we spent a lot of time together, like over the 18 years I was at this bank. Help me understand, if you have a high performing family office, what's going on there? Why is it high performing? What's the experience? And there's a distinction between high performing investment management, which everybody wants and ascribes to be a great investor. But a high performing family office is operating like a business. And you are measuring everything. You understand sources and uses of capital. There's no surprises on closing the books every month from a tax construct. You understand how to manage the artwork collection and the risk around the art, your insurances, your loans, what you should have onshore, offshore, what the legal structures look like for everything, where you want to express your next dollar in alternative investments or private equity or direct investments. You know why you're doing it. You're not just buying it because someone's presenting it to you. Then very much like run the family office like a high-performing business, which it was interesting. And at the time, they suggested that the budget was 56 basis points on $1 billion to have a high-performing family office, not including any investments. And so, what we looked at was the activities that go on in a family office, and we wanted to minimize the burden. And the dilemma that my teammates were faced with was they had a very good family that they worked for. Principals were on top of everything, wanted to measure everything, didn't trust everybody, but they were very, very focused on not a lot of headcount. They were a very private family. They did not want people knowing their business, but they were willing to pay for everything and anything. So that's why they kept trying and looking for this unicorn technology. We spent a lot of time visiting with many, many, many family offices. In my career, I've met with thousands, some of the largest in the world. Those were our clients when I was at the bank. The family offices that looked like professional investors, we were balance sheet partners. Largest client when I was there, we had about $12.5 billion worth of balance sheet exposure. So I came calling to these folks and asked if I could come and go visit with them. And we were longtime friends, and I've known most of the patriarchs, and they were like, sure, come visit, we'll have dinner. And I'm like, well, I'd like to spend a day and a half or so with the family office. And really, Mark, just spending time interviewing everybody in the family office, understanding what everybody did, what they created from a work product, what technology they used, where the work product went, why that person wanted it, what did they do with it, right? What was their work burden like 3 years ago, 5 years ago? What's it like today? What's staff look like then? What does it look like today? What technology they use? What's the budget look like? Really wanted to count almost every keystroke of activity going on in that family office, right? And we all hear this idea that if you've been to one family office, you've been to one family office. And I guess that's interesting. The way we look at family offices is they're way more similar than they are different. Now, you could have a professional capital markets team trading equities, derivatives, doing whatever. That's fine. That's unique. And you can be an allocator, and that's fine, and that's unique. You could do direct investments, but the operation and the operational burden is very similar. So we in one of our big offices here in Houston, like we have a big whiteboard out. We just really whiteboarded out all the activities in the family office. And our approach was to create a very digital environment to operate the family office from. We didn't want humans touching data. And that's how we kind of got to designing the technology that we use and thinking about those pieces. It's the outcome of the pieces. It's not the pieces, right? It's the outcome that you desire. It's not the user interface of the technology. And I think potentially that was a unique approach to looking at the problem when we were doing and going through that exercise in 2018 and 19.
Yeah, I think that saying, you've seen one family office, you've seen one family, they're not necessarily snowflakes, right? A capital call can only be processed so many ways, right? And that there's certain steps that need to take place for that capital call to be, efficiently and timely and accurately executed. So if you can kind of map that out and apply technology to it, I think that makes a lot of sense. You had a recent blog post you were mentioning. I thought it was a really interesting perspective because when you look at family offices, they're often really over reliant on Excel and like retail software. And part of your perspective on that was that there's a lack of intentionality in design because they come out of an embedded operating company. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah. It's really interesting because you'll have a very successful entrepreneur or family business. And then and this happens more than it doesn't happen, right? They remember what it was like to start the company that created this windfall of wealth. And then they go and start the family office the same way. And the difference is when they started the business, they had 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever it was to start the business. Right. And now they have hundreds of millions, if not billions. And they're creating an environment with almost no oversight, with intention, right? It's really interesting. And it happens in every corner of the family office world that we see. We see big private equity guys, billions of dollars, $4 billion one that we know well. And he's telling all the analysts all they need is Excel, because when he came out of Stanford and started this private equity firm, that's all he needed, right? Right. But there's so much to look at that it's difficult to get their arms around. And in that piece, I also address what one of the interesting things that happens is when they move from the business, and oftentimes they're forced to move the employees out, right? There's a change of control. There's something happening. There's going to be a change of control. And so they take the team that they know and trust and move them into working with them in the family office. And then you've got a CFO and a treasury person, these people that are very bright and talented and certainly loyal and trustworthy, but they don't know anything about managing assets in this way, right? So they're really not prepared to even think about how to go about setting up a family office. There's a good expression that we picked up upon. I am not the author of it. I can't remember who told it to me. It might have been Peter Braxton in Vail. There's no blueprint for running a high-performing family office. There's a blueprint for almost every other business.
Yeah,
there isn't one for running a family office well.
It is interesting. Obviously, these people are hired, trusted CFO, the treasurer. They've done that particular job well. Like the family's comfortable with them, trusting with them. But then you have these, other disciplines that you need to incorporate. And I think the part of the problem with you see Excel and this retail software, it's just quick to stand up, and they need something right away, and they need to, okay, let's just start tracking this information and get Excel going. So. And then, a year later, they get this massive spreadsheet with probably 5 or 6 significant errors in it. And it's a beast to unwind. Let's talk about, there's a couple different approaches when family offices can look at technology. They're basically 2 camps. And obviously, there's no one right answer for every single family office, but there is a right answer for every family office around best of breed versus all-in-one or comprehensive solutions. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? What are the pros and cons in these approaches? Like, what's your take on it?
Yeah. So we test all technology before we buy it, right? And we would love to find the unicorn that could solve all the problems. Life
silver bullet,
right? If you could do everything from one place, I mean, it certainly sounds elegant. From a practical application, we knew what we were solving for when we went and started down the path. And so we could quickly say that this is not going to work for us, right? And one of the problems with, a few of the problems with the all-in-one solutions, and especially now in 2025, is technology is moving really fast, really fast. We've never seen it move this fast. And the ability for you to compete when you have a closed architected system and try and be the best at everything, I think is gosh darn impossible. And what you're going to get stuck with is a system that is difficult to upgrade. It's difficult to manage. It's difficult on the companies too, right? Because you have a finite amount of resources. And let's just be honest with ourselves. Like 25 years of my career has been spent on family offices, from some of the biggest in the world at a big bank to doing what we're doing now. Family offices, as much fun as they are to talk about and the wealth that they have and the things that they manage, I mean, we're pretty unique people that are in the family offices. We're not very commercial oftentimes. We don't oftentimes have legitimate budgets to do things. We don't necessarily make rational decisions, and we can't move things forward. So if you're a software provider, do you really want to build software for us? Like, let's be honest. Like, should you?
Not a rational buying behavior either, right?
Right?
So
no,
it's a tough market.
Terribly. And so And so when those companies transition and they take in private equity money or different things happen, and we see this a lot, right? Technologies get old very quick because you have to continue to put a ferocious amount of money into R&D if you're going to stay ahead. And newer technologies today make technologies even 5 years ago very obsolete, right? And the evolution of large language models and what can be done and how these things move forward, there's just so much more you can do with agents than you do with humans or that you can do with software. And you can't out software your way out of bad processes, right? You just can't. And so I think the difficulty from the all-in-one solution, it may work well for a very modest operation or something that you're comfortable with things not necessarily being at your fingertips. We designed everything for an environment where everything is at your fingertips all the time. The data should be live or very close to live all the time. And the most important thing that we looked at, and it was sort of our true north, was, and this was really unique in 2019. I'm not sure how unique it is today. We wanted to create an environment that was 100% digital. And we didn't want humans touching data or moving data around, right? A lot of problems with the all-in-one solution sets is while the user interfaces look lovely and they're nice and they're attractive, how the data gets in and the limitations to it are where your problems are. Like, how do you get artwork in, right? How do you get currencies in? How do you get bank accounts in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in? Like, the bigger families have all this stuff. And what ends up happening, I think, oftentimes with a lot of families, and another inherent problem with the best of breed approach is they don't know necessarily where they're going as they move along, and they end up with this technology debt. They keep buying things, they become obsolete, and they're moving data from place to place to place all the time with humans. We worked a lot with the folks at Bain on some research, and they've created this term, the swivel, right? And somebody's taking data from one place and swiveling it and moving it into another place. And unfortunately, that's what most people experience with the best.
Sneaker net. Right.
Right.
I think, for some family offices, I think it's somewhat their tech personality in terms of if they don't want to manage multiple vendors and maybe it's a smaller operation and want a simpler approach, they can be a good take. I do think that, those all-in-ones, depending on the amount of tech debt that those firms have, are set up well for AI, in that you have one unified closed-in platform. You do have the where you spoke about, though, they are making choices on their roadmap, and there's limitations. You can't do everything well. So you need to make sure that the choices that they're making, the approach that they're making to their R&D is in line with where you want the product to go.
Yeah.
Because if you have a particular feature or function that's important to you that may not be important to them, then that's just going to languish a little bit. The other thing is around, regardless of whether you're a comprehensive solution or whether you're a standalone, is you need to have API connectivity. There's no longer you can just do everything yourself. Even the most comprehensive systems still need to be able to plug into tech stacks. Can you talk to me a little bit about, how you've taken an approach to integrating different pieces of software and getting a unified approach with different vendors?
Yeah, I mean, that was really right in the very beginning for us. And we knew what we were trying to solve for. And so again, we would eliminate technologies because we run data through them, we test them, we talk with the people. Big part of what we think about when we think about technology companies we want to embrace is, what are they spending on R&D? Like, that's a big thing. Identifying the gaps, that's a big thing. When we started down this path, we for some reason or other were able to start speaking with people in the engineering departments, and we convinced one very large company that we all know that we liked their technology a lot. We thought it was really elegant the way things could be visualized, and it was almost limitless with visualization, whether it's artwork we want to visualize, automobile collection we want to visualize, you name it, you can bend this thing around. But we thought it would be a lot better if we could have the data connected from, it's a basic example, but alternatives at the time. And so for them, that was like the first API connectivity that they had built. And we had to have it that way because we were literally staffing a very complex situation with 2 people sitting in a family office, right? And so you have all of these entities, all of this real estate, tons of alternatives, 7 different big banks around the world. All this stuff had to come into one place so the principal could see it, but he didn't want a lot of people. And so that was paramount to us in thinking about that. And there's a concept called a canonical data structured environment that I learned from one of the guys from Two Sigma, the hedge fund firm, one of the computer scientists. And we thought about that a lot. We thought about not only do we want the things to be connected, but we actually want the data to go live everywhere where it's supposed to live. So it's one thing to connect it from A to B, but what about A to B to C to D, E, F, and G? And so like we wanted the system to be able to have interconnectivity upstream, downstream, and move things everywhere that they should go and route that data without a human being touching it, right? And that's, I think, pretty still unique today. We've learned a lot in 5 years, and the evolution of this stuff is really interesting. And what's happening now is happening so rapidly, in the ability to do these different things. And I'll tell you another thing that's really important that we learned along the way is data reconciliation and audit. And that's a beautiful case for AI. And when you can put agents on things that are continuously learning and identifying problems, what it ends up doing for us and for most of the technology firms that we work with, we were either early access partners, meaning they were new, they were evolving, they came out of a venture firm, and we helped interconnect them in the ecosystem and build relationships and bring 4 or 5 engineering departments together from different firms and go, you guys are all related. You didn't know it, but you are.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Let's be aware of each other and how we can make these things move. And so sitting this artificial intelligence on top of other people's technologies to mine for erroneous data and do different things, we can show them where the majority of their errors are coming from, right? And so we have stuff where you've got missing data. No technology is perfect. It probably never will be perfect, but we want to get it as close to sort of 98, 99% as much as we can. And in the beginning, when we started looking at this, if we couldn't like rationalize 85% or better data quality, we would say we cannot use this technology because we don't want humans in here. And so adding this technology on top of other people's technology and the way we've created this using AI, it literally will identify, here's an example, Mark. You're expecting 6 different private capital statements, same fund, private equity fund, but you own it in all these different things for a whole host of different reasons. And everybody did their job. There was a glitch at the administrator. And for some reason, only 6 were telegraphed through the system. And so there's one missing. And it's not the end of the world. No one's going to lose their life. But how most people would figure that out is the controller will eventually figure that out when they're looking at the numbers. Or the numbers will be wrong in however you're visualizing that. And you may pick up on that, you may not, right? But as you're looking to express and make decisions, having live, accurate data makes a big difference. And so what we've got is on every morning, we're running these system analyses, and it's saying, hey, we got 6. X was supposed to equal 7. It identifies where it came from. We use process automation software. It generates an email back to the company automatically and tells it there's a problem. You're missing this, right? And it's a fantastic way to improve the state of what's going on and what's happening in a family office, and not have some poor soul have to go to data reconciliation because it's not a fun job.
The beauty of these agents too is that, they don't sleep. They don't lay off that task until it's complete, right? You don't have that stuff that falls between the gaps. Oh, I thought you had that. Oh, you did. Or, oh, I did the follow-up, but they never got back to me. And then I forgot about it. And then you don't catch it until you're closing the books and you spent all this time trying to figure out why you're off here or there. I think looking at those large data sets too, AI is great for that. And hey, what's missing cost basis? Like you find that out when you move it downstream to your, financial accounting system the hard way. But if you could have somebody early on in that part of that ACAP process say, hey, the cost basis didn't come over when we open up that account at Schwab, that's can save everybody a lot of time that way. before we get into the AI, because I know we can't not have that conversation. Just talk to me a little bit about vendor management, um, in terms of how, when they come to selecting a vendor, how can a family office better set themselves up for success when it comes to negotiating that contract, and what should they be thinking about in terms of putting in the actual contract?
Yeah. So there's a lot here, and there's a lot we've learned. And to be fair, I think all the companies are getting much better too, right? But I would build standards into my contract, and one of the things that I would recommend to people is the technology firms are all going to want you to come forward and say, Mark, we're going to give you really terms if you sign a 3-year. We're going to give you amazing terms if you sign a 5-year, right? And people, that's where they forget that's not where the negotiation ends. And I spoke with somebody recently in family office. He's like, "Oh man, the pricing's so good. I think we're going to sign up for 5 years." I'm like, "Really? 5 years? What happens if it doesn't work?" And I mean, it's like what's very common nowadays when people get married. There's a prenuptial agreement involved. Certainly, there are for most people that are relatives of the family office. And I would think about, like, what do you do with technology if it doesn't work? And I would have milestones built in. I would have things done around implementation built in. It always seems like, and this was our experience, it may not be for everybody's, but the salespeople come along and they're all really nice, bright, shiny, happy people. And they're all fun and nice, and they're going to take you to lunch or for a drink and all these different things. But then they're gone. And once implementation happens, the thing that we think about a lot is, what does the first 90 days look like? And when are we done? When is implementation done? And so if the companies are really good, and they're almost all really good, but typically us as consumers of the technology, we hear things like out of scope. Mark, we didn't have this scoped out. And you're like, well, how could that be? We gave you volumes of information about ourselves, and this is all you do. And yet we were led to believe this is going to be a 4 to 6 month process. We're in month 9. And we've heard horror stories, people in month 15 and 18. And with certain products, we're going to need another $100,000, right? And so there's a concept in the energy business, since we're based in Texas, called a 9-line bind. And you've got so much money into this well, you're just going to keep spending it until you get the oil out of it, right? And so, that unfortunately will happen with technology. So I think about what happens when it doesn't work. And I'd have penalties built in both ways if you can. And they want to sell you the technology. They want to be flexible. And as long as they hit their milestones, these things shouldn't be a problem for you. They should be able to execute it. But if they don't, like, why shouldn't you have a reprieve, right? And if you sign a 2-year contract, what's really going on in the first 60 days, right? So don't pay for it. And if you're going into the system, if the implementation team can't start for 5 weeks, why are you paying for it, right? So be mindful of that. Be mindful of how things are going to work with other things that you have. So when you're buying technology, there's this concept of technology debt and technology deficit. Technology debt is the things that we've already got on the books, and however they're working or not working, they are what they are. But does the new pieces that you're adding in speak to those, work with those? How are you going to move that data? We have all these data silos. Like, how are we going to move this stuff around? Think about the outcome that this is going to provide you. Think about how much training is going to be required. And not just training required to get it up and running, but when you speak to your peers and your friends and the people in the industry, or on Forge or at conferences or wherever, like, how much effort does it really take for you to get this thing moving? And at what level would you grade yourself that you have it at? So you could very well say, this is Ray. I love ABC software. It's done really well. Ray, grade yourself based on what you think you can get out of the tool. Where are you? And I'd say it's analogous to a lot of other software out there, right? I mean, Salesforce is a very famous one, and most of us have a love-hate relationship with it, right? And so, but I'm certain that there's tens of thousands of people that have extraordinary relationships with it, and it makes their lives effortless and amazing.
You can live without it.
But the implementation really matters. And so, even when you pick the right technology for you, there's a 50% chance, I think, that you're not going to be happy with the outcome. And so I would focus on that. What's it going to take? What level of competence do our people need? How much output are we going to get out of it? What's the adoption rate going to be? What's our real budget look like for this? Because it's not about the technology. There's the implementation, the service packages that go along with it. Do you need to keep somebody on retainer to help update with it? Because a lot of these technologies can help solve a lot of problems, but the operator on it needs to be an expert, right? It's you put a golf club in Tiger Woods' hand, you give me the same club, it's going to have a very different outcome.
Different result, right?
Right? And I think people need to really work hard at operating these softwares. This is not Star Trek Enterprise, and you're not talking to this machine and it's not doing it for you.
I think, I think a lot of sometimes with these implementations, there's, you might have selected the right vendor, but maybe the family office wasn't fully prepared for the implementation either. I think Doug Fritz had a good saying, like fences make good neighbors and good contracts make for good vendor relationships. There is something to that in terms of laying out the expectations clearly. It's obviously an avenue of last resort, but if you are in a situation where you're not getting the expected results from it, well, why is that? Well, you had a 90-day plan with the milestones laid out in the project, and it's clear that, who was responsible for what. I just think that it helps clear, put the expectations in black and white as clear as possible. And I think that kind of sets you up for success. What are some of the other factors that family offices should take a look at in terms of implementing new software that kind of helps them better increases the odds of success?
Yeah. Do a lot of work up front to really understand your processes, right? You can't out software yourself out of bad processes, right? You just can't. And so define your process inside the office, understand every step to a capital call. Where does the data need to go? Where does it need to live? Everything from how you get that information about the capital call. Think about the number of fingertips. How many people are copied from a duplication standpoint to make sure to check the bank that there's liquidity in the bank account that you need in the particular entity that you need to do this 3 days before and then the day that it's due. Like, think about all those calories spent from end to end. And then when you look at the technology that you're looking at, what of that does it solve? Because oftentimes, if not the majority of times, when we buy technology off user interfaces, it'll help you go faster, but sometimes in the wrong direction. And you're gonna have to throw more bodies at it. And the more technology that a lot of people adopt, unfortunately, the more headcount that they're adding to. So something that was supposed to make our lives more simple or better often doesn't feel that way. So we can't express loud enough that what is the outcome that we're looking for? How close does this bring us to the outcome that we want? And let's be honest with each other about budgets. Right? I mean, that was the most helpful thing about working with BCG. Like, I get it. We don't have limitless budgets. But when you pick technology based on price, you're generally making a mistake. Outcome all day. And all of us in the family office industry and space and that work in family offices probably should go back to the university and become industrial psychologists so we can explain to the principals why we need to spend this money, right? Because we're trying to look after their capital. We're trying to not have big tax surprises. We're trying to not have bad trust and estate plan surprises, right? In order to do that, let's go back to that benchmark that BCG created. And I think it went up this year. JP Morgan came out with their inaugural family office publication, and they said it's 64 basis points now. And so,
they should be spending on tech.
Well, to be on the operations and the service of the family office, not on the investment of capital.
Just the nature of the beast. Let's talk a little bit about data management. I think certainly during the implementation process, family offices love, they want as much data as possible, backdated data.
Oh yeah.
Right? What's your perspective on that? It certainly can be expensive. I think it could be a way in which you can get an implementation that goes sideways. But what are your thoughts on historical backloading of historical data?
We have a new client coming on board in Austin, and they brought up this idea of going back with all their data, and I'm like, so what's the rationale for it? Why do you want to do it? And well, we want it, like, we have it, and we would like to move it over. I'm like, okay, so you have the data, like, what level of quality do you think it's at? Is it 85% accurate, 95% accurate? Is it 100? Like, if you lost your job, if it wasn't would it be 90 or better? And he goes, I wouldn't bet my job on it. I'm like, okay, so why do we want to move it? Curious. Like, we can move it, right? You can move this. It's historically done manually and historically inaccurate. And even when you're going and backfilling it in, like, it's just no different than Excel. If you're logging people in, and we work with a large accounting firm. Interesting, we help them automate and think about doing quarterly estimates. They had somebody downloading data entry person. They had to check the data person. They had to check the checker, and a managing director sign off on it because they're using it for tax work. Well, if you're going to do a backfill, there's going to be a data entry person, and that's it. So who's checking the accuracy of what they're putting in there?
We have to have 5 people involved to say, how are we categorizing this? Charge of accounts change, all sorts of things change in terms of.
Now, that being said, we're looking at some really cool stuff. So we're very close to a couple of amazing venture firms that we help sit inside the venture firms and look for new technologies and solve problems. One out of Y Combinator, it's data. It really comes down to this, Mark. Everything comes down to this: data extraction, data structuring, and data visualization. The technology is what it is, and it helps along the path. But those are the 3 things that we focus on all day, every day. So let's take backfill. If we want backfill, let's just not move data. Let's take statement data, because statement data out of your custodians or whatnot should be accurate, right? And how far back can we go to get that? Well, the problem with that is that's manual, and somebody's got to get that off, and then somebody's got to put that in a spreadsheet, and somebody has to do all these different things. But what if in the advent of AI applications, we could train agents to go and ping that thing, capture that data, read that information, move that data, and automatically populate the upload for whatever technology that vendor that we're using, and moving that through the system. So our firm and a mutual friend of yours and mine are testing this with 3 companies right now to see if that will give us the quality data that we want, that we can do that without human beings touching it. And
I think this is a great area where AI can apply the brokerage statements. I mean, we talk about, obviously, alternatives has been one of those areas, but the brokerage, firm is the, the books and records, and often the data feeds that you get from these firms are incomplete, especially around cost basis, amortization, but it's on the statement. So if you can feed the statement into the machine, and that can convert it into structured data and do that whole processes for you, I think there's a lot of value in that for a lot of different applications. I get excited about that particular use case. I think you guys overlook because, alternatives all day, right? Well, let's talk about the impact of AI. And, it wouldn't be a WealthTech podcast if we didn't talk about AI, but how has AI impacted your particular business? What are you seeing, and how should family offices be thinking about adopting AI?
It's a good question. I mean, everybody's talking about AI, right? I saw a good piece out from, I think it was Bain. And when you talk to the C-suite about, are they comfortable with their AI strategy? It's like 87%. Like, yeah, we know what we're doing. We know what we're going. We're doing this. But the people that are actually doing the work and everything else are like, how confident with your firm strategy? It's like 37%, right? And
we have one.
Yeah, and I think everybody's talking about it, and whether you're in asset management, and if you're thinking about WealthTech, if you're thinking about everybody's talking about it, right? They don't know what they're talking about though. And you see all these things written up about the applications for AI, and I certainly love Rebecca Gooch at Deloitte and the pieces that they come out with. But AI for AI's sake is silly. What it is what applications are we empowering with AI and using agents to go solve other problems with, right? So for us, data reconciliation makes sense. We're working on a couple new technologies right now. We're not working on them. We're giving perspective on it as early access partners. And this is a really interesting area, Mark, where you can take this connection and put it into a data room. And we have a family office that we're working with here in Houston. It's a startup family office, about $4.5 billion. And it'll help you do your deal analysis. So if you can actually have the agents go in and they know what you're looking for as an investor, you can mitigate certain things that you would never invest in. You can make all kinds of strategic and structural issues, and it can help you make those decisions. Omni was trying to do that out of Salt Lake a few years back. They were backed by SVB and a bunch of different folks. We like them a lot. We tested data with them. We wanted to help them build their product, and the technology wasn't ready yet. The technology is ready now. And that can really save you 3-4 days worth of analyst work. And think of that, you could go look at hundreds of deals, right? And then come back in and it's going to tell you, it looked at 100 deals, Mark, here's 3. Like,
based on your particular profile that you feel comfortable with that investment approach. You want founders that are operators that are in a particular
investor rights field. Could be anything, right?
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of different things that you could put in there from a direct investor standpoint, right? Dilution clauses, like all kinds of different things. If you're looking at venture or co-invest, right? That's fantastic, right? And so with the folks that we're working with at this really cool venture firm that we're close with, they're super optimistic that in 6 months, there's going to be so much more advancement than even where we are today in these things, which is amazing. It's exciting and it's frightening because how obsolete are the companies that people have that they've been working with that are 5 years old? And we all know how painful an implementation can be. My goodness.
Right. And then they have to get off software that you barely have been on. I think the agentic AI for the investment professionals in particular, I mean, those are your expensive resources. The amount of deal flow that family offices see, they can't even, correctly kind of manage that kind of data tsunami. But if you can apply, AI to that particular problem, so then you're really looking at the stuff that truly meets your criteria, you'll be able to identify the outliers on that. I think that's tremendous. Even on the public side, like sending these agents out to listen to all the analyst calls and just summarize all that information. Like you have a 10Xer now of your investment professionals.
There's a company called Boosted AI. It's a Canadian company,
right? And I was blown away when I saw the demo. It's just like it's amazing.
Right. And you can think of the applications of that. So when we met with them, it's public market analysis scenario. You can say, what 20 stocks do I want to have if this is my thesis or in this space, right? It's going out to 175,000 different databases and you can sit there and watch it, build this thing for you. It's going to take 6 or 7 minutes, but it's compiling so much data and coming through and showing you that the analysis and why. And so I go to them, and we're working with 3 other companies out of this venture firm to go pull in with agentic AI portfolio company level detail on a private equity fund, right? So that you can really know what you own and you can shock test the portfolio. So I go to the guys at Boosted, what if we have an energy shock? What happens if we go into a more negative interest rate environment? Who knew? What if we have a tariff shock? You can have all this analysis and you can run it against your publics, but you can also run it against all the holdings in the privates. And so now for the first time, I think, maybe not for the first time ever, but maybe more readily available, people can go in and say, how do I hedge my private equity exposure? Right? At the portfolio company, or where do I express my next dollar? Why do I do it this way? So, most of us, most family offices are buying things because they're presented to them or they're connected to different people for deal flow. But if you really knew where you were underweight and you wanted to have position in there, maybe ag tech or Lord knows whatever, it could help you identify those things, help you identify the gaps, and then help you think about hedging it or leveraging it, right? If it's working really well and you really like it, what other things could I do to leverage what's going on in this particular space because of the success that it's having?
Yeah, I think it's the next frontier. I mean, AI is, especially on the privates, has kind of solved that kind of low value first mile type of data aggregation and conversion of unstructured to structured, and which is certainly a huge leap forward. Don't get me wrong, is that whole world stuck in 1996 in a PDF, but now you can do these things that you're used to doing on the public side in terms of being able to do more dynamic analysis of your portfolio in the underlying companies. I think it's fascinating what AI is going to be able to do to the front office. Where do you see AI impacting the back office? I know you talked about reconciliation a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it happen. I mean, for us, it's automated workflows. For us, it's doing that reconciliation. When we map things out and how we're moving data is we just create rules for these agents, and then they're coming in and they're going and mapping the work and doing the work. And they're moving things from one place to another. And so this repetitive work, right? Bob Pisani at Anapar is always like, I love this expression, eliminate undifferentiated heavy lifting. Well, let's eliminate all lifting, right? And you can do this, then that helps you have so much more flexibility when you're adding technology that does have a canonical data structured environment that is interoperated and doing these different things, right? That's where we see really interesting applications for this stuff. Fascinating work that can be done because it'll help us we're very proud of the work that we've done. But the evolution of this is being able to retrieve and recall data anywhere in any format, any way you want to see it, right? Any way that you want to see it with the least amount of effort. Like, I think I penned a piece a few months ago and, talked about return on effort. Like, how much effort does it take for you to get the result that you're looking for, right? And how much of that can be automated? And in our opinion, we want to automate everything that can be.
Good chunk of it, right? So the question is, does AI modernize the family office? I mean, or do you still see kind of this bell curve where certain percentage of family offices, especially single family offices, are not going to be legacy software, Excel, or does AI really be like, I have to embrace technology now? It's too much of a game changer.
Well, I mean, it depends on so many things. Like when we started the company, we met with this really amazing lady in Chicago, worked for a very well-known family office we would all know. And she had a mutual friend, a really good friend of mine from Kellogg, and we sat down and talked with her, and she was like, I love what you're doing, Ray. But she goes, so many family offices are going to be afraid of you. I'm like, why'd they be afraid of me? And I mean, I'm only 5'6" on a good day, like 5'6.5", right? Like, and she's like, because they have sold to the patriarch that they're doing this already, and they have their arms wrapped around this, right? And so, is Excel going away? No way, because you could more easily get an investment banker to quit drinking and smoking than you could get them to quit using Excel. And so when they build out their family office, they're hiring bright analysts that remind them of them on Excel.
Yeah, right.
Right. There's going to be all kinds too. And it's like, what's the ability to spend? And the problem is once bitten, twice shy. So when you go in and say, we want to go get this technology, and I feel so sorry for these people in family offices. Like, I visit with people in New York in a major family office recently, top 5 guy from a major private equity firm. And I know they're going down the wrong path with their technology architecture. And I was just like, dude, let me help you. Like, tell me what your organizational structure looked like. Show me the entities. I don't care about what's in them. I don't care about anything else. Show me the sources, and I will map you a data architecture plan for you to move forward with that at least you can be comfortable with for 5 years. Because the path you're going down now, this technology that you're going down, I don't know who sold it to you, but it's going to be complicated. It's going to cost you more money. You're going to throw more bodies at it, and I suspect you're going to be rewiring in 3 years. And so you have to go back to the principal again, and they go, we need some more money. And like, why do you need more money? Well, the system we have is not working, right? Like that's hard to go
Yeah.
ask that
It's
question.
tough to ask for money to get that system and then have to go back and ask for more
We
money
met
to fix that system.
another really big family officer. They're lovely people, and they hired a consulting firm, and the consulting firm came forward and gave them their suggestion of technology softwares, which, by the way, they may have been resellers of many of those pieces, and we showed them. We did that same exercise: map the entities, map the ownership, map where everything sits, right, and then we pre-engineer the outcome that we're looking at from the data structure. And I showed it to her and she's like, this is amazing. She goes back to her consultant and hands it to her and says, this is what I want you to put in the report. And I go to her, like, we're having lunch. And I'm like, why did you hire the consultant? And she goes, oh, well, I don't want to deal with salespeople. And if it goes wrong, I can blame the consultant. Right? She's like,
yeah, I mean, consultants should add more value than being a scapegoat, and they can help these family offices on these buying journeys, but sometimes you have consultants that are there for consultants' sake. Ray, this has been great. I like to wrap up these conversations a little bit on a personal note with 3 questions that have nothing to do with wealth tech. What's a hobby or skill, like a superpower you might have that people don't know about?
Hobbies and skills. I love doing things fast: boats, planes, racing boats. Love scuba diving, love skiing. You and I ski, that we have that in Happen. I love meeting people. Like one of the best parts of running that family office practice for the big bank I was at was meeting all these founders and hearing their stories and doing different things. And a big part of what we do is trying to connect good people to other good people. It's not a superpower. My wife just says I talk too much. But I've never met a stranger. Like last week when we were in Aspen skiing and sat down, this lady sits down next to us at the bar we're having lunch at, and all of a sudden she's hanging out with 7 of us, and there's a huge wedding going on in Aspen last week from a well-known family in Houston, and 25 private jets out there. Like we became interconnected like immediately. Like, and my daughter says the same thing to me. Like, Dad, you go to London, you bump into a bunch of people, right? Like,
Right.
it's just fun meeting people and, makes life more enjoyable.
Well, that is a superpower. So in terms of skiing, what's your favorite place? What's your favorite resort?
Man, that's a really tough one. If I'm going to say North America, and you always create enemies when you do this. I lived in Colorado in the mid 90s, and nobody in Colorado who's a Colorado native likes Vail. I love Vail because of the back pools at Vail.
Vail's amazing. It's like one of the best resorts in the country. But
but I mean, the Coloradoans will tell you they go to Winter Park or Mary Jane, and right, like they like the technical ski hills,
like a litmus test of how hardcore a skier you are by where you go on I-70, right?
Yeah, and I'd say like when I lived on the East Coast, when I was younger, we'd always go to Europe, right, and go to like Austria, Examerlism, different places, and it's certainly a completely different skiing experience. Right. You go to Val d'Isere. I think we need to get a couple of really fun technology people next year, and we'll put our own mini tech conference on with 12 or 24 technical skiers and go to Val d'Isere for 5 days and ski across towns and eat great food.
That sounds great. Eat stinky cheese. I think I got a place up in a little cabin up in Maine, and there's Sunday River's not a big of resort you can get up there, but I like the family hill, Mount Abrams, especially when the snow's good, because I know where the little stashes are and they don't get skied off by noon. So it's everybody has their own thing, and they get their different folks for different skiing things. In terms of business travel, obviously you got to travel quite a bit. What's your favorite business destination?
Oh man, I like them all. Like we travel a fair much internationally at my household, and it had a great time in Istanbul last year. We spend usually about a month a year in Africa. My wife's from Kenya. And so we work with a venture firm out of Chicago quite a bit. And I spent a lot of time in Nairobi helping some of their venture portfolio companies and whatnot. That's more ag tech and things. That has nothing to do with my day job. It's just meeting people, building businesses and doing things around there. Been spending a lot more time in Cayman than I've ever spent because it's such an interesting international booking place. And we're working with a lot of folks down there. There's a lot of international activity down there. There's an amazing conference that happens down there every year, hosted by a very big family on the island. Probably the most significant family office conference I've ever attended, with over 125 family office represented, over $1 billion, and world leaders hanging out there from Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, Dubai, the UK. It's extraordinary. It's like this miniature Davos. If Davos and Ted had a very immature child who's
Had a baby.
sassy girl, that's their conference. It's spectacular.
Nice. Yeah, I enjoy the travel aspect of it. I'll go anywhere once, but for me, it's close by, but it never gets old. Is good old New York City, man. It's like,
yeah. Hong Kong and Singapore are fun. Like I used to go there a lot when I was in San Francisco working for the big bank. Like those are just such great places to go. Like fantastic. Everybody should go. Everybody should go hang out in Hong Kong and Singapore for a week at a time and just take it in. It's unbelievable culture.
sign me up. All right, Ray, this has been fantastic. I could talk shop with you all day. I really appreciate the time and the insights.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks so much for having me.